first time I heard a man's voice come through my baby monitor, I thought I was dreaming. The second time it said my name. The third time told me not to let him in. I wish I'd listened. In the quiet town of Maplewood, where houses were lined like polite secrets, and every night carried the hum of streetlights, there stood a pale blue house on the edge of a cul-de-sac. Inside lived Claire Thompson, a new mother whose life had become measured in soft cries, sleepless nights, and the steady rhythm of the baby monitor on her nightstand. It was supposed to be her comfort, that tiny window of sound connecting her to her 6-month-old daughter, Emily, sleeping across the hall. But one night, that comfort turned into terror. Monitor crackles a faint whisper, unintelligible. It was a little after 2 a.m. when Claire stirred awake. The room was still except for the soft drone of the ceiling fan. She blinked at the monitor beside her. The green light glowed steadily. Then came the sound. A faint whisper. Not a cry. Not a coo. A whisper. Claire. Her name, said clearly, slowly, by a man's voice. She sat upright, heart pounding in her chest like trapped wings. The monitor's tiny speaker hissed with static, then silence. Emily's soft breathing followed, calm, peaceful, unbothered. Claire stared. Maybe she'd imagined it. Maybe exhaustion was finally catching up. Have you ever heard your name whispered? When you were completely alone? If you have, did you answer back? She shook it off. New mothers hear things, she told herself. The mind plays tricks when you live in the rhythm of 3 a.m. feedings. But even as she drifted back to sleep, the monitor glowed faintly on her nightstand, as if waiting for something to speak again. The next morning was bright and remarkable. Sunlight cut through the kitchen blinds, catching the faint steam rising from Claire's untouched coffee. Mark, her husband, was already halfway out the door, tie crooked, smiling that tired smile that said, "We're doing our best." "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Barely," Claire admitted, forcing a smile. Emily woke up twice. "I think." He kissed her forehead, unaware of the way she lingered on the word "think," because she wasn't sure anymore if the voice had woken her, or if she'd only dreamed it. That evening, she noticed something small, almost insignificant. Emily was staring at the corner of her nursery, smiling at nothing, giggling softly as if someone invisible was playing peekaboo. Claire chuckled nervously. "You're a silly girl," she said, glancing toward the empty corner. That night, when she turned on the baby monitor, the same faint static returned. It wasn't unusual interference, maybe from a neighbor's Wi-Fi, but as the minutes passed, the static seemed to pulse almost like breathing. And then, again, a whisper. This time, softer, closer.
"Don't let him in."
Claire's throat went dry. The monitor crackled again, and suddenly Emily's voice, her baby's actual cooing, came through. The warning voice was gone. She picked up the monitor, staring at it as though it could answer her. If you heard a warning from nowhere, would you listen? Or would you convince yourself it was just in your head? She tried to tell Mark, but he laughed it off. "These monitors pick up random signals all the time," he said. "Maybe someone's baby next door. Maybe a CB radio." "You're sleep deprived, Claire. Get some rest." She nodded, though something deep in her gut twisted, because she had seen something odd on the monitor screen, too. A flicker. Just for a second, the nursery had looked different. Not like their nursery. Like another one. The wallpaper was darker, the crib older, but when she blinked, it was back to normal. Over the next few nights, the house grew heavier, not in noise, in feeling. Like the air itself had thickened. Claire began hearing faint footsteps from the baby's room at night, slow and deliberate. Every time she'd rush in, Emily would be sleeping soundly, tiny chest rising and falling in innocent rhythm. One night, desperate for proof she wasn't losing her mind, she started recording the baby monitor feed on her phone. Monitor static click sound of phone recording. At 2:37 a.m. she captured it, a faint shadow crossing the crib. Not a person, not clearly, just a tall, indistinct form passing between the crib and the nightlight. She played it back again, and again. The shadow lingered for less than half a second, but in that half second, she noticed something else. In the mirror behind the crib, the reflection didn't match. In the mirror, the shadow stopped and turned toward the camera. Sharp static burst, heartbeat intensifies. Claire dropped her phone. She wanted to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. Her first instinct was to run to Emily's room, but she froze at the threshold. What if it was still there?
If you saw something impossible in your baby's room, would you rush in to protect them, or would you stand frozen, like prey waiting for the dark to move?
When she finally gathered the courage, she swung open the nursery door. Door creaked slowly, only to find everything as it should be. Emily slept peacefully. The mirror stood still, catching nothing. but the faint reflection of Claire's trembling hand. The next morning, she scoured online forums for anything about baby monitor interference, about voices, about reflections that don't match. What she found chilled her blood. A thread dated from 3 years earlier. Someone describing the same house greater than. Strange noises. Monitor picking up whispers. My baby laughed at something in the corner. The user's name was Lydia R. The post ended abruptly. No replies. But one user had commented months later, greater than, the man in that house lost his daughter there. They say he still calls out to her. Claire's hands trembled on the keyboard. She clicked through property records. The previous owner was a man named Richard Hale, a widower whose 6-month-old daughter had died in an unexplained accident. In Emily's room, her stomach turned. She wanted to stop digging, but curiosity, or fear, kept her scrolling.
Would you stop reading, or would you go further even knowing the truth might follow you home?
That night, she dreamt of a man standing by the crib, humming a lullaby out of tune. When she woke, the monitor was on, even though she had unplugged it before bed. Thunder Rolls lullaby plays faintly, clock ticking louder each second. By now, Claire was afraid of sleep. She kept the monitor volume off, but the screen still flickered faintly beside her bed, showing Emily's crib in washed-out grayscale. Then one night, the camera shifted. She hadn't moved it, but it slowly tilted on its own, centering not on the crib, but on the nursery door. Soft creaking sound static rises, and then she heard it again. Claire! A whisper. The same man's voice, clearer this time. Calm, almost patient. I just want to see her. Claire sat upright, eyes glued to the monitor. On screen, Emily stirred slightly, not from the noise, but as if something unseen had brushed past her blanket. The whisper came again.
She looks just like my little girl.
Claire yanked the monitor plug from the wall, heart pounding so loud she thought the baby would hear it through the walls. But even unplugged, the screen stayed on.
If your device stayed on after you pulled the plug, would you run, or would you stare, just to see if it would blink?
Mark found her in the hallway, shaking. You're scaring me, he said softly. You need rest. We'll stay at my mom's this weekend, okay? But she couldn't leave. Something told her if she left, if she turned her back on that house, someone, might follow. And she wasn't about to let it near Emily. The next morning, she walked into the nursery with her phone recording again. The mirror, the toys, the crib, everything looked normal, until she saw the monitor on the dresser. The same one she had unplugged last night. Its light blinked slowly, steady green. Still on. She leaned closer, trembling, and heard the faintest sound of breathing. Not a child's. Not hers. A man's. Then, from the monitor speaker, you shouldn't have taken her. Claire stumbled backward, nearly knocking over the crib. Emily began to cry for the first time in days, a wailing, panicked cry that echoed through the house. And in that cry, beneath it, faint but unmistakable, another voice crying with her. Layered crying wind intensifies, fade to silence. My question is, would you believe me if I told you that wasn't the last time she heard him? The storm came without warning. By midnight, rain was hammering the roof like angry fingers, and the power flickered with each flash of lightning. Claire sat on the edge of her bed, clutching the baby monitor even though she'd sworn not to touch it again. Mark had taken a late shift at work. She was alone, or so she hoped. The monitor screen blinked to life on its own, the image warped, gray, breathing in and out with static. Emily was asleep in the crib, tiny and perfect. Then, another shape entered the frame, a man's silhouette, broad-shouldered, head bowed, standing exactly where the crib shadow ended. Lightning flashed, illuminating nothing but the crib. The man wasn't there, yet his outline remained on the screen. Monitor his heartbeats rise. Then the voice, clear, resonant, calm, greater than. You shouldn't have taken her. Claire's hand shook so hard the device nearly slipped. Who are you? She whispered, greater than. Her father. The power went out. Darkness swallowed the house. Emily began to cry. Claire ran. The hallway stretched longer than she remembered. The sound of thunder chasing her like footsteps. She burst into the nursery. Door slammed shut behind her. Instant silence except distant rain. The air was freezing. Her breath fogged. The crib was empty. No, no, no. She turned, searching, frantic. From the corner, the shadow stepped forward. His face was colorless. His eyes pools of grief, not malice, but wrong, the kind of wrong that breaks reality. In his arms, something small moved, a shape swaddled in blankets that were not Emily's. Give her back, Claire screamed. He looked up, confusion etched across his transparent face. Greater than. You don't understand, she isn't yours. The walls trembled. The baby monitor on the dresser burst into sparks, static screaming through the tiny speaker. Electrical burst, high-pitched ringing wind howling through cracks. The spirit stepped closer, whispering now, words overlapping, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. Greater than. She cried for me. She called me father. She was mine until you took her. Claire lunged forward, snatching the phantom bundle from his arms, and found nothing there. Just cold air and the faint smell of old dust. He vanished, collapsing into the dark like breath on glass. Then silence. Only the rain and the sharp, metallic scent of burned plastic from the monitor. Emily was back in the crib, sleeping peacefully, as if none of it had happened.
What would you have done if you saw your child vanish before your eyes, only to return moments later as if nothing was wrong? Would you ever trust reality again?
When dawn broke, firefighters were in the nursery. Mark stood by the doorway, pale and shaken. The smoke alarm had gone off moments after he got home. He'd found Claire on the floor, unconscious, clutching the melted remains of the baby monitor. They told him it was a short circuit, faulty wiring, the usual story, but they couldn't explain the burn pattern on the wall, the faint outline of a man holding a child, scorched into the paint behind the crib. Claire woke hours later in the hospital. Emily was safe, unharmed. No one believed her when she said the monitor spoke. When she told them the man had called himself Emily's father, the nurse exchanged a glance with the doctor. Exhaustion, they said. Postpartum stress. Mark wanted to believe them. He needed to. But that night, when he unpacked Claire's overnight bag, he found her phone. The video she'd recorded played automatically, showing the shadow standing by the crib, turning its head toward the camera, and whispering his wife's name. He deleted the file without finishing it.
Would you have kept that recording, or erased it, pretending ignorance was safety?
2 years later, ambience, children laughing faintly outside. Time dulled the edges of that night, but not completely. Claire avoided monitors altogether. Emily was now 2.5, bright-eyed, quiet, too quiet sometimes. She'd sit in her playroom, tilting her head as if listening to someone invisible. "Who are you talking to, sweetheart?" Claire would ask. Emily would smile. "My friend. He sings." Claire's stomach always tightened. She'd hide her fear behind a smile, pretending the world was normal, pretending nothing was wrong. But one autumn afternoon, while packing away baby things, she found the old monitor again, melted, lifeless, blackened at the edges. She should have thrown it out. Instead, she kept it in a box in the attic, sealed and forgotten. Or so she thought. Night ambient, soft hum wind through trees. That winter, the house filled once more with sleepless nights. Emily had stopped crying entirely. She slept soundly every evening. Claire told herself that was a blessing, until the night she woke to a faint sound, not from the nursery, from the attic. A soft, rhythmic crackle, static sound, slow heartbeat beneath it. She climbed the ladder, heart trembling. In the dark corner, the cardboard box glowed faintly green, the monitor's light. It was on. Through the speaker came a whisper, the same male voice, older now, gentler. Greater than.
"She's perfect. Thank you for taking care of her."
Then, a pause, and another voice, a child's giggle. Emily's. Claire dropped the ladder, ran downstairs. Emily's bed was empty again. Footsteps pounding, door opens, cold wind rushes in. Outside, the night was calm. The moon lit the yard, pale and endless. The baby monitor still whispered through the open attic window. Greater than. "Good night, Claire." Then static. Then silence.
If you heard your child's laughter coming from the attic, would you dare go up?
Weeks later, new owners moved into the blue house on Maplewood Lane. They found nothing unusual, except a faint outline burned into the nursery wall, almost like a woman holding a child. When they repainted, the shape bled back through the primer. And sometimes, at 2 a.m. the baby monitor in the new nursery flickers on by itself. A soft hum, a man's voice, then a woman's, both whispering, lovingly, to a baby that no longer exists.
If you ever hear a voice through the static calling your name, don't answer, because some things remember who listen.
If you're still awake, you're already one of us. Subscribe, the next story is worse.